You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. It is Friday. You know what that means. It's time for the weekly huddle. We got the Bet Set Snap edition ready for you. Week 2. I am Derek, and as always, joined by your co-host, Kevin. How are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Another wonderful Friday night, right? Getting ready for the weekend slate. Really good Thursday night game. I enjoyed that. So yeah, man, I'm ready to get off and after, man. I'm looking forward to this.
That game last night. I don't know how else to describe it, but just strange. It was just a strange game. It started off really slow to the point where everybody that had gone on the unders like, oh, we're gonna hit this easy. Are the Eagles gonna be able to get enough of a lead to cover that spread? And it was one of those that tale of two halves. Because the second half did not look anything like the first half did on that at all.
No, but that's what happens when you give up 14 points in the first 2 minutes of the second half, and then you respond with a long touchdown of your own. I mean, hell, we had 3 touchdowns, 4.5 minutes into the second half?
Yeah.
That's a quick way to find the over when you throw 21 points up on the board like that. But, turnovers, right? Ball security. I know that Jefferson wants that one back at the end of the first half, right, where he lost that fumble as he was trying to stretch it over the goal line. I know, Cousins wants his back. They know, right? They're professionals. It's easy to point out, low bar security. Well, Jefferson was trying to make a play. Cousins got hit on the blind side. Now, there were some other things that needed to be cleaned up a little bit, sure. But if you're Minnesota, you got to be thinking, look, we are -7 through 2 games in the turnover battle. And one was a 1-point loss, and the other one was a 6-point loss, and one of our turnovers was on the goal line. You have things to build off on in Minnesota, right? The record's not great. You don't like being 0-2 to start the season. You got to crawl out of a hole. But right, wrong, or different, there are positives out of this for Minnesota. They have not been playing poorly. They just have not been securing the ball. So if they can take care of those issues and limit and cut back on all these turnovers and are able to put points up on the board instead of giving extra possessions to the other team, this Minnesota team will be all right by the time it's all said and done with. I don't think the NFC North is going to run away and hide from anybody.
No, they very well might not. I do very much kind of I was looking back through and just kind of seeing some of the notes on this thing. The Vikings are off to the start that I was thinking that they'd be kind of looking at that, because I know when we were doing the NFC prediction side of it, I had the Vikings finishing 6-11 on the season, which they keep having these turnovers like they are. That record is going to be easily attainable for them. In fact, they keep turning the ball over at the pace that they are. The 6 wins might be a tough road to get to. So.
Yeah, so we'll see how they clean it up, right? I mean, got to get in practice and start working on it and really emphasize it with the players and go from there. But they know that they should at least be 1-1, right? That Philly team's good, but Philly has not looked nearly as dominant through 2 weeks this season as they did last year, right? This team is not quite as efficient offensively, although the second half with DeAndre Swift was it was a thing of beauty, other than in the home league, I was going up against DeAndre Swift. That was the only downside of it, but it was a thing of beauty. This is a clinic in how to hit your hole and just take the wind out of the other team's sails. And Philly wrote the book on it after they got those touchdowns and went up 27-10 or whatever it was there for a little bit. So, Philly almost cost themselves, right? There was a drive there in, I guess it was at the beginning of the fourth quarter, end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth. They got down into field goal range, and they had a touchdown called back because Rashad Penny holed. And then And then Jalen Hurts took two bad sacks. Or I guess one, he scrambled up out of it and lost 3 yards instead of 7. But then the other one, he got blitzed and just fell at the 50-yard line. Like, so they went from field goal range and really kind of being able to make some things happen and really a touchdown. There's a long touchdown down the right sideline to A.J. Brown. That got called back because of a running back holding. And I'm sitting at the hotel bar in San Antonio with one of my coworkers, and I am going nuts at Rashad Penny. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you don't olay the linebacker and then grab his shoulder pads on the way by. Like, you go low at that point. You go low, you hit him in the thighs, and you try and take his legs out from him. And you give your quarterback that chance. You don't olay and grab. Like, that was so bad. That's so bad. But nevertheless, it turned out to be an interesting game. Stinking backdoor covers, or pushes, if you will.
Right.
At that 6 points. Like, it was just, that was a bummer. But, a lot of props hit, right? Jefferson got his, Devontae Adams got his, DeAndre Swift got his, Jalen Hurts, got the, your rushing touchdown prop. TJ Hawkinson got his. Like, for fantasy, the players came to play, right? The only one who really disappointed is A.J. Brown. And through 2 weeks, he has not been the player that you drafted him to be at the back end of the first, top end of the second, right? Like, you're a little disappointed through 2 weeks with A.J. Brown. Sit tight. His time will come, guys. Like, they're not going to force feed the ball into him, right? So Devonta Smith's been open a little bit more. They'll start to shift coverage over to him, right? Like, they don't want Smith to go buck wild like he has. So they'll start changing some things over. And that touchdown changes a lot of things for A.J. Brown.
Right.
That's a 35-yard touchdown. He still doesn't hit his yardage prop, but the 6 points for the touchdown helps, right? I mean, the catch, the yards, the touchdown, that whole ordeal is, basically 11 or 12 points, depending on if you have a bonus for plus 20-yard plays.
Yeah. If you're playing just a standard half-point PPR, that's a 10-point play.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's a big deal. All right, right? I mean, and it's one play called back from holding, but it's 10 points. Like, that turns a subpar performance at what, four catches for 29 yards.
Yeah.
5 for 56 and a touchdown. You can live with that. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but you don't walk away going, man, what in the world is going on? So, Goose Fraba, relax. Like, A.J. Brown's time will come, guys. Like, yes, it's disappointing, but stick with him. There's a reason that you took him, top end of the second round.
Yeah. And if you were listening to the Tuesday show as well, right, we told you that Jalen Hurts would be under his passing total prop, that one hit, as well as, we also told you to pine Alexander Madison. He was going to be in for a rough night, and that certainly came to play there as well. So hopefully Alexander Madison can make up for that Christian Kirk fiasco for me for last week. So we'll see how that one goes. But any other thoughts here on last night's game, or any news or notes before we start getting into the breakdowns this week?
No real news or notes yet. Deontay Johnson is doubtful. We should get a better idea Saturday when that injury report comes out. It's leaning towards he's not going to play. Austin Eckler is doubtful. I guess that's kind of big news, right?
That is, yeah.
So going up against a stout Titans run defense, it's going to make this week difficult, even if you picked up Josh Kelly, right? You picked up Josh Kelly, you saw what he did. We will get, I have a prop for him as we get into this, so stay tuned. I'll let you know my thoughts about Joshua Kelly. I'm not going to give my secrets away just yet, but definitely if you have Eckler in your lineup, go ahead and change him out. Like, it's not going to happen, guys. They need to reset here for a week, see if they can get healthy and back out on the field.
Right. Jacoby Myers also still in concussion protocol. So if he doesn't clear, like he's probably pushing to and trending to not be available for you on Sunday as well. So he definitely had a big week one, and I know a lot of folks were looking for him on the waiver wire to help bolster them up here for week 2. But
if you were looking for him and he wasn't there, check again if he does not play this week, right? So because fantasy players felt he was waiver wire fodder at one point, if you pick him up and then he doesn't play, the chances are they could possibly drop him to pick someone else back up. So be mindful. If you're looking, didn't get him the first time, pay attention. See if maybe you can sneak him in that way. You might get a second crack at it.
Absolutely. Before we get to our first matchup, we do have a question coming in. Mr. COD Reaper in the chat. Matchup this week: Lawrence, Jamal Williams, Tyler Algier, DK Metcalf, Raheed Shaheed, Gerald Everett, T. Higgins versus Fields, Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, Justin Jefferson. Apparently they don't have a second wide receiver in there. Tyler Higbee, and I'm guessing that's Devonta Smith in there. Thoughts? Some of that's going to depend on who the other wide receiver that they're going to play in is.
You got a hill to climb, brother.
Yeah.
That's tough, right? Going up Jefferson and Smith, we already know what they did, right? Like that's it's a big mountain to start off against, let alone, whatever they fill in with that wide receiver slot. So, and
they
even eat Christmas.
Running back room, they've got the edge on you there with both Dalvin and Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I'm not as much worried about Dalvin, but Chubb, the way the Steelers got gashed against Christian McCaffrey, and we know the Cleveland just loves to run the ball. So
you're hoping that Algier gets a bunch of 5-zone carries to try and counteract Chubb there.
Yeah, you're basically Higbee, tough matchup against San Francisco. Yeah, you're hoping that no more touchdowns get scored, right? Like you don't want Cook and Chubb to fall into the end zone. You can deal with the yardage, but you don't want them in the end zone. Fields, I don't think he's going to have much of a rushing presence, which kind of limits his ceiling this week against Tampa Bay. Again, we'll touch on this as we get into the game breakdowns. But I think with Fields, I do think you have the plus matchup with Lawrence.
Yep.
I think
Jamal
Williams versus Jamal.
That's Jamal, I'm pretty sure.
I think it is. You're right. I think it is Jamal Williams. I think it'll be better against Carolina, but you need him to play in that red zone, right? Like that's where Jamal Williams is going to be beneficial to you. Is you need New Orleans to move the ball between the 20s through the air, and then once they get inside the 20, let Jamal Williams let him do what he does best, right? And that's score touchdowns. So Metcalf, Shaheed, I like the upside of Shaheed. Like I think you could see that too. So there's a possibility, but not gonna lie, man, this is gonna be a tough week for you. Like you definitely need some home run plays. Cooper, Sanders, Pitts, Olave. Oh, he's gonna throw Olave in there.
Yeah.
Jesus, that roster's good, man. that guy has a stacked roster for sure.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, if he throws in, I guess, Mr. COD Reaper, let's just make sure the bench that you just posted, is that your bench or your opponent's bench?
I think it's his opponents from what we were looking at earlier. Hey,
I think it is as well.
Since waivers have already cleared and everything else, if you have a minute, we will get to it. It may not be right away, but shoot us over what your waiver wire looks like, man. We'll take it offline and see what we can do to help you out here. If there's some high upside,
and it is
that you might be able to get your hands on, because you're going to need some home run plays here this week to keep up, I think.
Yeah, you're up against it a little bit, and it is his bench there. So I would imagine that either Miles Sanders, Olave, or Amari Cooper gets plugged into that other wide receiver slot, and at that point,
Sanders.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It can't be Sanders.
Oh yes, for the wide receiver slot, you're correct.
Smith was in his flex. It can't be Sanders.
Right. So my bad there for not even thinking about that. But
so Olave. That'd be who I'd be playing there.
Me as well. So
all right. Yeah, shoot us what the wire looks like, man. We will get to it. We'll get you an answer here tonight, before Derek and I decide to put our head on the pillow here. We'll get you an answer tonight on if there's anything we think that could improve your chances. But it is going to be tough sledding this week.
Yeah, you got a little bit of an uphill climb. So, all righty, let's go ahead and get into our first matchup here. Week 2, starting off, we got Green Bay Packers heading over facing the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons favored by 1.5. Over under on this one is 40. Thoughts on this matchup?
I'm taking Green Bay, man. Like I know Atlanta won their first week, but it was so bad. Drake London didn't have a target. Kyle Pitts only had 3 targets. It was, yes, they run the ball and they run it very well. The Packers, I say historically, over the last 3 or 4 seasons have not been as good at stopping the run. But they got some reinforcements up front. Like, I think that they will be able to stymie the run just enough, right? And I think Jordan Love is the real deal. Like, I think putting some pressure on this Falcons secondary, which is still very choppy, is something that they're going to be able to do with Jordan Love and some route concepts. Obviously, we'll see if Aaron Jones goes or not. If not, A.J. Dillon's is a shoe-in, right, for a flex play if he's on your bench. He's also a shoe-in DFS at that point. Like, you want a piece of A.J. Dillon if you're doing DFS with Aaron Jones if he doesn't go. Christian Watson looks like he's already out, right? So you're looking at Romeo Doubs to try and break free, right? Hopefully it's a little bit more efficient, more than the 29 yards. You'd love to see, 60, 70 yards out of that, maybe a touchdown, but he's going to be throwing to some folks. But I do like Green Bay. I think they find a way to win this game. Like, I don't think Atlanta's ready to start 2-0. They're not. I don't think they're primed to be that good just yet. They're extremely one-dimensional. So, like that, I also like the under. Like, I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of points in this game. Yes. Sorry, that's what I got. I'm rambling.
No, I like it. I've got Green Bay as well. On this one, I managed to actually find Green Bay at a +2 on a couple of sports books there. So getting that extra half point even when it comes to it. But I think Green Bay on the money line is going to win this thing. Matt LaFleur is one of the best records of any head coach against the spread since 2019. I think that holds true here, right? So even though Green Bay's a road dog on this one, I think that they're going to win this thing outright. I do think that we will see some points here. When it's all said and done, right? 40 is just a low mark here. I do think that we're going to see just enough points to put us on the over. Realistically, I see this one where the Packers come away winning it, probably 24-21. Prop that I really like on this one is Bijan Robinson over 17.5 receiving yards.
I like Jordan Love over 218.5 passing yards. Like I said, the Falcons secondary is not very strong. Carolina was not able to test that. Jordan Love will be able to test that here a little bit, even without Christian Watson. So I like him to go over his passing total.
Right. I like it. All right, let's go ahead and hit up next matchup here. We've got the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills are favored by 8. The over-under on this one is 47. Thoughts on this one?
I like Vegas, and that line is even creeping up to 8.5 in some places, which makes me like Vegas even more. So Buffalo did not look good, guys. Like, there were pieces that looked good, but there were too many opportunities too many turnovers, right? Now, Vegas is not going to get as much pressure as the Jets did. Like, we are definitely taking a step down in class as far as defensive prowess. So maybe that leads to a little bit more time. It's Buffalo's home opener. Like, I could talk myself into a Buffalo win. I just don't think that they're going to win at that margin, right? Like, I think we're looking at like a six-point game, something like that, maybe a 4-point game, 24-20 by the time it's all said and done with. But I think the Raiders will be able to keep it close. Bills win the game, but I am taking the over.
I like it. There's a lot of things that actually point to Las Vegas covering this one. One of them being that Jimmy G has one of the best records against the spread out there over the last few seasons. So that's working in the favor there. Moreover, though, the Bills in their last 4 starts on short rest are 0-4 against the spread. So I'm taking Vegas here as well. I don't think the Buffalo wins this thing by 8.5, 9 points, however you're looking at those books. to it. I think this is a 7-point or less type of game. So I do think this is one of those that we're going to see probably a 28-21 type of matchup with the Bills winning it, but Las Vegas is going to cover those points on it. One of the props I really like, and this is one of those we could see this one taken out on one single play. So really like those types of props that one play, one opportunity in a game can get it knocked out. That's James Cook going over 12.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I really like that one. I like that one a lot. The prop that I went with was Gabe Davis over 43.5, right? Like we saw that Josh Allen will still force it down the field. Gabe Davis, I think he will have an easier time getting behind the Raiders defense than he did the Jets. Long touchdown play. I don't know if he's going to get it all in one, but I think he can get the chunk of it in one, add 2 or 3 other receptions along the way, and it's an easy over.
I like it. All righty, let's go ahead and head on into the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincy is favored by 3. The over-under on this one, 46.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm going to take Cincinnati. Like, neither team was overly impressive week one. Cincinnati, maybe you blame it on the elements. You know, maybe Cleveland's defense is just that good. Baltimore's defense is not as good as advertised. We saw that in kind of how they handled Houston, a little sloppy, right? They're just a little sloppy. I don't think the efficiency there is there in offense just yet under this new system. So I think it's Cincinnati winning this game so that way they don't start 0-2 in the division to start the season.
I could certainly see that. I like Cincy to win this one. So money line, I'm looking Cincy. I do think that Baltimore can sneak in here, though, and cover this thing. I've seen a couple of different books out there where you can get Baltimore plus 3.5. I think that this thing ultimately is a push type of game if the line stays at 3, though. So I've got this one being an over on that one. I see the final score being 27-21 in favor of Cincinnati. But if you can find that Baltimore plus 3.5, I do like that call there. The prop that I'm looking at, Joe Burrow to go under 10.5 rushing yards in this one.
Yeah, I like that. With that calf, I don't see him running a whole heck of a lot. I'm taking Lamar Jackson under 214.5 passing. Like, I still haven't seen it. I'm still not convinced. You know, I think Cincinnati's pass defense is going to be a little bit better than what Houston's was even. Like, they're going to throw some different things at them. It's a divisional matchup. They kind of get grimy and gritty, especially in the AFC North. So I don't think we're going to see Lamar air it out a whole heck of a lot in this one.
Fair enough. Question coming in. We'll hit that one up before we get to our next matchup here. Super C&B Challengers. Got to sit one in PPR. Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Breece Hall. I'm going to take Breece, to be honest with you.
You got to sit one?
I got to sit one of those two, it looks like.
I'm sitting Sanders.
Okay.
They have to move. They have to move the ball somehow. Like, you're not just going to go 3 and out every drive against the Cowboys. And Breece looked electric, right? He really looked good against Buffalo. And yes, Dallas's defense is very good and very fast, but they got to find a way to generate offense somehow. And if you're going to get the ball in the hands of your playmaker, it's Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Like, that's what this team is resting on right now, and the defense. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and the defense to keep him in games.
Right. And you make some good points there. New Orleans also having a very good pass or a very good run defense as well. I think I still lean on the Breece Hall. Just I think Dallas defense greater than type of thing, and you've got, and I don't think Chuba Hubbard eats into Miles Sanders as much as Dalvin Cook eats into Breece Hall on that one. But start David Montgomery. That's where you and I are consensus on. Absolutely, go David Montgomery, who I think will see a lot of opportunity and have a good game here as well. So take that for what you will. You've got the points that we've made and all of that. Any other thoughts on that one?
I think depending on your matchup, right, knowing your opponent, if you need a ceiling play, Breece Hall has to be your ceiling play because his rushing stat line might be meh, right? But there's a good chance he has 5 or 6 catches in this game off the screen passes, right? Because that's what the Jets went to. They went to a complete screen game in the second half against Buffalo, and it was let the defense come at you and dump it off. So if he ends up with 5 catches for 55 yards, maybe not quite that much, 5 catches for 40 yards even, something of that nature for Breece Hall, you're cheating points that way, right? Like that's where you're going to make it up from the volume that Sanders will see, in my opinion.
No, and that's a good call there too. I will definitely agree with you that Breece Hall is the ceiling shot. So he absolutely could do that, and it's one of those that, right, like, he's electric. He could make a play or 2 plays on that, make a guy miss at the line, and he breaks one for 20 yards, right? Like he could have a ho hum in the opportunity type of category, but he could. But he's far more electric, and he could put up some big plays there. So I do like that. I think Miles Sanders will get more volume there, and probably a little bit more of a floor play. So that's a great point to bring up there when you're talking about that on what do you need versus your opponent. Do you need ceiling? Do you need floor? And you can kind of take it that way there as well. All right. Also, we like in the Broncos, Browns, Giants, or Bucks defense this week.
Broncos at home. The defense isn't their problem. They had stupid penalties, but that doesn't cost you fantasy points. The Redskins won't get more than 20 points. Commanders, sorry. The Commanders won't score more than 20 points. Like, you can take that to the bank. The question is, can the Broncos score 21 points to make sure they win the game? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough ask.
Right.
I think I agree with you on that one, right? The Broncos D has been really, really good at home. The Giants have kind of an intriguing matchup playing Arizona, but I'm right there with you. I'm gonna ride with the Broncos on that one.
The thing, I expect that defense to bounce back a little bit, but
there might also be a little shell shocked.
And I think Carolina found some positives, right? Yes, the Commanders came through and did end up winning that game. But I think Carolina felt like they held their own, right? And it's just efficiencies of trying to find what works best for Josh Dobbs as their starting quarterback right now.
Right. Trey saying, evening, gents, full point PPR. Got to start to Garrett Wilson, Michael Pittman, Elijah Moore, Rashad White, Javonte Williams, or James Cook. Thanks and good luck this week. I think Garrett Wilson. Yeah. Elijah Moore is my first guy out.
Yes.
And then some of that's going to depend upon what do you need, whether you need more of an upside or more of a floor play. Honestly, I think Javonte Williams is probably my second guy out. Just because of the fact that I think he's going to – they're slow rolling him back, right?
He's splitting it more. So opportunity with Pittman had a great first game against Jacksonville.
Yes, he did.
Like, I think there's a chance that he could replicate some of that. The Bears are not a good defense, so that I like that Rashad White upside.
Right.
Like, there's something there. And really, James Cook against the Raiders. Yes, we like that receiving prop, but I don't trust James Cook to get in the end zone. Right.
No.
Like, I think that's the problem with Cook is he will get some of these flashy plays, but when it comes down to it, I don't think he's a red zone target for the Bills.
No, and I think you'll see James Cook get maybe 45 yards on the ground and 20 yards to the air. So,
Wilson, Pittman, and White. We're down to those 3, right?
Yep.
I'm
willing to let it ride with Garrett Wilson. I think he's a guy in there, and then it comes down to Pittman or Rashad White for me, and I think I lean Pittman. I think Rashad White is probably the safer floor play between the 3 of the guys that we have left there, but I think I kind of want the upshot on both of those guys. So some of that's going to depend on whether you need upside, you need floor for your matchup there, and you could even go 1-1 there. So if you're going with the floor play, ceiling play, I'm going to take. With the ceiling play, I got to go with Pittman and the floor play White then. If I'm looking for pure upside, I'm taking both Wilson and Pittman.
I think I'm going to go Pitt. If I was betting my house on it, I think I'd go Pittman and White. I know everyone wants to play Garrett Wilson, but that Jets offensive line is bad.
Okay.
And that does worry me that they're just not going to be able to with the cornerbacks that Dallas has between Diggs and Gilmore. Not that Wilson can't create separation, but I don't know that Wilson will have time to create separation for Zach Wilson to get him the ball.
Yeah, that might be a little tough when you have like 1.7 seconds from start to release time.
Yes.
That might be a little tough.
I do find that to be difficult. So
all right,
I feel like Pittman against a subpar Houston defense, right? And we saw that he was Richardson's favorite target. And I like White going up against a poor Chicago defense.
All right, you talked me into it. So that's how I think that's how we've got that ranked, right? We've got that ranked Pittman, White, Wilson, Cook, Javonte, Elijah Moore in that order for you.
Yes.
Okay. Terrence saying that he benched Addison for Dobbs in my flex. Am I good to start Pickens, Kyron Williams, DJ Chark, Shaheed, or Herbert? I am not liking Herbert this week. You need to be keeping a very big eye on Chark. Still coming off of an injury. I want to see what that looks like. Kyron Williams up against a incredibly tough defense with the Niners there. So I'm just kind of whittling guys out here on guys that I really wouldn't start there. So that kind of leads me down to Pickens or Shaheed. And if I've got to pick between the two of those, I'm probably going to go with Pickens over Shaheed, especially since I think Deontay Johnson's going to miss. And I think George Pickens becomes wide receiver 1 for Pittsburgh this week, even in a tougher matchup there.
Yeah. I'm going to co-sign that. And it is between Pickens and Shaheed, right? Like, so, and we're both assuming that Dobbs is in the lineup, right? Like that we are not messing around with that. So,
I think by the way he words that, am I good with Dobbs or should he start Pickens, Shaheed, Herbert, Chark, Kyron? Okay, so we're going to read it that way. Sounds like Dobbs is in play, so we'll rank it that way. I'm going to go Dobbs, Pickens, Shaheed in that order for my flex.
I'm gonna go Pickens, Dobbs, then Shaheed by a hair, I think, because I like the Monday night matchup. Like I like having something to root for on Monday night. So that's what I would do, Terrence. Derek would flip it the other way. He likes Dobbs a little bit more than Pickens. I would lean Pickens. But I'm not gonna downplay the Dobbs thing, right? Like, I mean, we just said that I expect Jordan Love to go over his passing total. We know that Christian Watson is not playing in this game.
Aaron Jones is likely not playing in this one. So
maybe in this game. So if Aaron Jones doesn't go, that's part of it too. Pay attention to the injury report. If Aaron Jones doesn't go, I think Dobbs is the play then. Like it's taking 2 mouths from that Green Bay offense off the table. And I think you have to roll the dice on Dobbs that he's just going to see, 7 or 8 targets at least in that game. And you need him to come down with at least 6 of them.
Right. And one of them to be in the end zone, which he scored 2 last week. So
right. And Pickens is in much of the same line, right? Like this is his chance to elevate himself and not let Allen Robinson become a vulture of catches, yardage, and touchdowns in fantasy world because everyone's scared to start Allen Robinson, and I don't blame them. I'm scared, and I'm not doing it. So if Aaron Jones doesn't go, I think Dobbs then jumps ahead of George Pickens. If Aaron Jones does go, I think I have Pickens by a hair over Dobbs.
I'll get on board with that. So I think that's how.
Yeah,
I think we're both on the. Yeah, I think we're both on the same page there. So it does depend on how those injuries are going to shake out, and you're going to have to pay attention to that. The good news is that you're going to see the injury report come out 90 minutes before those games kick off on Sunday because Dobbs is in the early window, and Pickens is got that Monday night deal. So you'll be able to see what that's looking like between Aaron Jones and what the Packers injury report's really looking like there. But
yeah, and if you have a gut feel between the two, go with your gut.
Yeah, because this is one of those that I don't know about you, Kevin, but for me this is literally coming down to almost coin flip territory between the two of them.
Yes.
Because when I'm looking at it, I'm looking kind of at my rankings, they are that close to it. So Terrence, if you've got a that's a great point. If you've got a feeling that you want to play that guy over it, I'm not going to fight you either way, but we've kind of walked you through our thought process and how we would do that one. So Terrence also asking, was dropping Higbee for Hunter Henry a bad move? Need a streamer tight end this week? I probably would have rolled Higbee out there over Hunter Henry, but Hunter Henry looked good week 1.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight, I think you're going to be fine with Hunter Henry. I think it's going to be similar. Henry probably has a slightly better opportunity to get in the end zone against the Dolphins than Higbee does against the Niners. So I think Hunter Henry might have a higher touchdown upside. As far as volume throughout the game goes, Higbee might have a higher target upside.
Yep. Start J.K. Osborne or Gabe. I think that's K.J. Osborne or Gabe Davis, in which case you don't have the option anymore because K.J. Osborne played last night.
Starting Gabe Davis.
Yes.
Easy.
Yes. Cosign. All righty. Let's go ahead and hit up our next matchup, guys. If you have more questions, comments, things that you want us to speak into, go ahead and put those in the chat. We'll keep coming back to those, but we're going to head over to the next matchup right now. All right. Week 2, we got Seattle Seahawks traveling to face off against the Detroit Lions. Detroit favored by 4.5. The over-under on this one is 47. Thoughts on this one?
I struggled with this one a little bit because I wasn't sure if Detroit was going to get out over their skis because of their week 1 victory against the Chiefs. And I settled on the fact that they had extra days to prepare. This team, I think, is willing to fight for everything that they get. And in a home opener to help rally that fan base even more than how amped up they already are for this coming season, I expect the Lions to come out and be able to handle business here. So I did take Detroit. I took the over, though, because this game, for some reason, has shootout feeling all over it. Like, I'm not sure what it is, but I just can't get away from the feeling that, you know what, this game, Seattle kind of got torched, right, by the receivers in week 1. Yes, they have a decent run game, but the way that the Lions run the ball and their offensive line could make problems for them. So I like the shootout. I'm taking Detroit in the over.
Okay. Yeah, you and I are seeing this one a little bit different there because I think this is I think Detroit wins this one, but I do think it's going to be by about a field goal on this thing. And it is very tempting for me to take the over on that. Like Jared Goff and the Lions, they got into a rhythm, especially when they were playing at home, putting up points in bunches. Like there was a crazy split last year in fantasy football when you looked at between Jared Goff home and road splits. Like Jared Goff at home, amazing for fantasy. Jared Goff on the road, for fantasy. So as much as I wanted to get into that shootout type of feel with you as well, I'm going to take the under. I think that this is a game that's going to get awfully close to touching that over, but I think we're going to come in just under it. I've got this as like a 24-21 game when it's all said and done. So I think this is going to be an incredibly close, well-contested game throughout. It's going to come down to the very end with a field goal win in the sucker. I've got Monty as my prop going over 13.5 rush attempts in this one.
Yeah, golly, that feels low. Like that just seems like money in the bag right there. I like that one a lot. I'm taking the other Lions running back. I'm taking Jahmyr Gibbs to go over 26.5 receiving yards. The kid had pop, right? There's no denying it. They came out, obviously they said, look, as he gets more familiar with the offense, we'll start using him a bit more. But where they can use him right now is in the screen game, right? And those opportunities will come up just fine. And he can get this in one play, right? We saw how electric he is. Make one guy miss, and if he's off into the secondary, I don't know that anybody's going to catch him. So I'm not calling the long touchdown, but it wouldn't surprise me either. So I'm taking the over, though, 26.5 receiving yards for Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, this is a guy, once he hits full steam, watch out. Like, good luck.
And he gets there in like 2 steps, it feels like.
It's crazy. And actually, now that I think about it, did I say 13.5 rushing yards? Okay, I wasn't sure if I said yards or attempts when I actually said that. So.
But even the attempts seems low. Like
yes.
I'd put that at 17.5. If I were making that line.
Oh, yes.
With how the Lions played week 1, I'd tell you the line's at 17.5.
Yeah, I think that one is. I looked at that. I'm like, that can't be a real thing. It's a real thing. Done. Like okay, moving on.
That looks like a good start to a parlay.
Exactly. All righty, let's go ahead and head on into the next matchup here. We've got the Los Angeles Chargers facing off against the Tennessee Titans. LA favored by 3. The over-under on this one, 45. Thoughts on this one?
LA likes to throw the ball. Tennessee can't stop people from throwing the ball. I'm taking LA. And I'm going to take the over. I think there's going to be some points in this game because LA doesn't stop the run and Tennessee likes to run. So I think we're going strength on weakness on both sides of the ball here. I think that translates to some points for us. This will be a surprising high-scoring game.
Yes, agreed. So I do think that we're going to see a lot of points in this one when it's all said and done. I also think that LA is going to cover the 3 on that one as well. It's funny that you were just talking about the fact that, kind of strengths on weakness type of deal here. I've got Derrick Henry, and this is another one that felt kind of low, especially with how they've started utilizing Derrick Henry to make sure that they can get him the ball in some space since that offensive line isn't what it used to be. But Derrick Henry over 15.5 receiving yards.
Oh, fair enough. I'm taking Josh Kelly under 55.5 rushing yards. Tennessee defense does not get enough credit for how well they stop the run, but they do a really, really good job with it. And I think Josh Kelly's only going to see like 9 or 10 rushing attempts, and he ain't running at 5.5 a clip.
No, this is one of those that I know a lot of folks were all over the Joshua Kelly, pick him up, ready to go, all over the waiver wire, trying to handcuff Eckler, that kind of stuff. That was one of those that when I kind of sat back and looked at it, there's only so many guys that they carry into the week that are actually dressed ready to play the game. So it would not have, so it didn't really surprise me that was the case. Now, giving a week of preparation and a week of them thinking that Austin Eckler probably isn't going to roll in this one, not going to surprise me if we see this ball much more distributed in the run game here as well, to the point where it's not going to surprise me when we look at the stat line and we see 3, maybe 4 different Chargers players got more than 6 rush attempts on this thing. So I think this is one of those temper expectations a little bit for sure. Question coming in here over on Twitch, Braves fans asking, should I start Pacheco week 2? Well, some of that depends on who your other options are.
Yeah. Like Pacheco or Josh Jacobs? No. Pacheco against
Joshua Kelly? Probably.
Yes.
So
if you could give us a couple of names of who you're trying to decide between, that'd probably help us steer you in a direction, at least of some relevance. Now, if you want to hang out here for about another 10, 15 minutes, I do have a prop on Pacheco coming up.
I like it. Before we get to that one, we're going to hit up this one. So Eamon was talking about the KJ Osborne, Gabe Davis. Last one, should be thinking about starting Hopkins due to missing practice this week. I have Rashid Shaheed and Jahan Dotson. You should be pivoting from Hopkins at this point, would be what I would tell you.
Hopkins hates to practice. Like, that doesn't bother me.
Fair enough.
If you don't go Hopkins, your pivot is, in my opinion, Shaheed is where I would go. I don't think Jahan Dotson, I think, might have more success this week than Terry McLaurin will, just because of how they line up. And that off coverage on the Denver side is a weak spot. We saw it with Jacoby Myers. He went off in week 1, same role Jahan Dotson's playing. So Dotson might be an upside play in some regards, but I think I like Rashid Shaheed just a little bit more than Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, I was trying to read through some of the injury reports on Hopkins here, and I'm not really seeing, much in the way of news on that. So some of that will just depend on what you see on the injury report when it comes out Sunday morning there as well, and whether or not he's active or not. If he's active, I'd probably play him over Shaheed or Dotson. If he's not, Kevin just gave you the pivot there.
With the way Tyreek just torched their defense in week 1,
yep,
I'm going to lean on Hopkins to get his if he plays.
There we go. So, Eamon, there's your answer on that one. Keep an eye on the injury report. If he plays, play him. If not, pivot to Shaheed. All right, so we've got the answer to the who to start between Pacheco and Tyler Algier.
I'm taking Algier.
I think I'm right there with you. I think that the Algier looks like he's going to be the 5-zone type of back. Like it's the Falcons.
As long as he's going to see 12 to 15 touches a week, and with as much as Atlanta's running the ball, I think that's pretty dependable, at least through what we saw even last year coming into this year. So I like Algier this week over Pacheco.
Yeah. You and I are not in are a little bit against what the consensus rankings would have that be, where the consensus rankings have Pacheco slightly over Algier by a couple of spots there. But what I would tell you is if I'm looking down my roster, I'm starting Algier over Pacheco on that one.
I have Algier starting over Najee Harris this week in a work league that I'm in.
Fair enough.
I need the upside. Like I need something to combat. I'm going up against Kelsey, and Devonta Smith already went off on this person's team, and so I need some upside, and I don't feel like I'm going to get it from Pacheco. He doesn't catch passes. Algier doesn't catch a whole lot of balls, but that's all Atlanta does is run it. So Green Bay's not the greatest in stopping the run, like we covered in our first matchup here this evening. So, that kind of gives you the idea. I'm going Algier.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm kind of thinking through this thing as we go through it. I wouldn't be surprised if we look up at the end of this thing and see Algier with 11 or 12 carries on the ground for right around 60 yards and a touchdown. Like that feels very doable for me. On the flip side, Pacheco, who knows what Kansas City's going to do in this running back room? Like people have been trying to figure that one out for years now at this point. And I feel like his ceiling's about the same stat line that I just read off for Algier, and I feel like that's Algier's floor. So, I think that the safer play is Algier there. Brady Shansane knows the Jags run defense is pretty solid. It's not going to surprise me either. When we'll get into the Chiefs-Jags game here in a little bit, but not going to surprise me that we see lots of points, and it's all I'll kind of say there because we're going to talk about over-unders. We're going to actually break down that game here in just a second. So ready for the next game breakdown?
Let's do it.
All right. We got Tampa Bay, Chicago Bears facing off against each other. Tampa Bay favored by 3, over-under on this one, 41 points. Thoughts here?
I'm taking Chicago to cover. Now, I'm not convinced that Chicago's going to win the game, but I see this being, 18-17 or, 18, I guess, 16 or something weird, right? Like you're going to get a weird scoring game in this. But I am taking Chicago to cover, and I guess that's what's most important for this exercise. I'm also taking the under. Like I am not trusting Baker Mayfield to carve up a bad Chicago defense necessarily. And at the same time, Chicago is going to have a really hard time moving the ball on the ground against Tampa Bay. So that means you're going to ask Justin Fields to throw it more than he's probably accustomed to. So it's going to be a wonky game. I think it's going to be a pretty ugly game, honestly. But I'm going to take Chicago to cover in the under.
Fair enough. I've also got this thing being kind of a wonky score there as well. I'm thinking this one's going to come down about 23-20 when it's all said and done. So that means I've got the over just slightly. I do think that the Buccaneers, like this one feels like a push to me. Like this is a line set to basically push, but I'll take Tampa Bay at home for that one there. As far as a prop goes, I think you're absolutely right that Chicago is going to have to throw the ball more than we typically see. And I've got Justin Fields going over 169.5 passing yards.
Yeah, that's a pretty low total. I mean, I understand he does not throw the ball like Kirk Cousins throws the ball, but for Cousins to absolutely go bonkers as far as passing yards went last week, feel like Fields can't get to 170 is borderline disrespectful, in my opinion. So I like that one a lot. I'm taking Mike Evans over 52.5. Like, there is some sort of chemistry there between Baker and Mike Evans. He found him in week 1. I think they're going to take a couple deep shots, right? They're going to test that defense out, much like much like Jordan Love did. He was able to get some yardage there on that Bears defense and kind of push them back a little bit. So 52.5 is low enough for me. I can take Mike Evans.
All right, I like it. All righty, on to the next one. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kansas City favored by 3. The over-under on this one is 51. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking the Chiefs, but I'm going to take the under in this game. I think that Kansas City just looked a little out of sync in week 1, right? The receiving core was not up to snuff. Now, getting Travis Kelce back is huge. I think Kelce has his, but I'm interested. That's the word I want to use. I'm interested to see what receiver kind of steps up. Does Kadarius Toney shake off the bad game 1? Does Rashee Rice get more run because he was the most dependable receiver that Patrick Mahomes had in week 1? The Sky Moore remember how to create separation and that he plays football, not, tag along. Just all the things. So Kansas City wins this game. They are superior. Jacksonville plays them really tight. But I'm taking the under.
So yeah, this is one. I think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the week when it's all said and done. I've got the over on this one. And here's an interesting little stat that I found as I was going through it. I was looking things up. Under Doug Peterson, the Jaguars are 5-0 as home underdogs. So I'm going to take the Jags when they're getting points at home here. I'm not going to say that I'm bullish enough to necessarily throw that down money line, but if you're getting 3 points and that team rallies, these guys play each other incredibly close. So I think this one's going to get into a potential shootout territory. I think we're going to see the Jags cover that. Again, this one feels like a push bet. Like whoever was making the lines on these things and setting them all at 3, little unhappy with that one. Like, give me a hook one way or another to help me out there. But the prop that I've got Mahomes going under 301.5 passing yards.
I'm going to give you one, and then I'm going to give you a bonus one because I found an interesting prop that I think will hit. I'm going to take Isaiah Pacheco over 42.5 rushing yards. Like, they have to find some ability to take the pressure off Mahomes to find Travis Kelce all the time. And one way you can do that is to efficiently run the ball to help drop one of those safeties in and make it stop. And that's where you can get some of that man coverage and hit them over the top. The bonus prop is Devin Lloyd over 5.5 tackles plus assists. Tackles plus assists, 5.5. Devin Lloyd over.
I like that one. That seems incredibly low there.
I thought so as well, but it's on MGM if anybody's looking for it.
Guess where I'm headed. I like it. All right, another question coming in here. Let's hit this one up. Ryan over on YouTube. I was offered Kupp for Waddle and Brian Robinson. What are your thoughts on the trade and on Kupp's health?
I'm not doing that.
No.
Soft tissue injuries are very, very difficult to come back from and be full strength. They just nag throughout the season. So even though Kupp is on the IR, he's down at least 4 weeks. There's nothing saying that when he comes back, he's not going to take another 1 or 2 as they pull him off of IR to get ready to play. And half your season's gone. It's not worth missing another 3 to 4, 5 games of Waddle and Brian Robinson production. Kupp cannot make up for that down the stretch by himself.
No. And Ryan, what I would tell you is when you kind of start going through some of that too and start thinking through some of that, if you're looking at that, like, do you think at this point that Cooper Kupp is going to outperform Jalen Waddle when the season's all said and done? I would say at this point, probably not. They're probably going to be pretty close to each other. And then you're also giving up a running back on top of that. Like, that just seems like a no thank you very much. So, and he's saying it's full PPR. it really doesn't matter to me on the scoring format on that one. I don't want that deal. No, thank you.
Yeah, I don't like that. It's a little rich.
Right. So, all right, next matchup here. We have the Colts and the Texans facing off against each other. Houston's favored by 1. The over-under is 39.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm going to take the Colts. I thought Indy looked a little bit better than Houston did in week 1. And I'm going to take the over. I think this is, again, it's 39.5, right? Like, we're not calling for, a barrage of points to be scored, but I think we can get to 42 points in this game, 41 points, something like that. That would not surprise me. And with it being basically a pick 'em game, I'll take where I'm getting points. So Indy over.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over as well. Like, this is one of those that I think both of these teams can stumble into 20 points apiece on this one, pushing us to the over. I do think I'm just going to take the hometown team here and take the Texans to cover the 1 point there. So coin flip type of game. I'm going to take the hometown team to cover it and the over. One of the props I really liked on this one was Nico Collins going over 46.5 receiving yards.
The prop that I liked was Michael Pittman going over 55.5 receiving yards.
That one also seemed like that was a little low for him.
I thought so.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Let's hit this one up. We got the San Francisco 49ers facing off against the LA Rams. San Francisco favored by 7.5. The over-under on this one is 44.5. Thoughts on this one?
Taking San Francisco on the over. I think the over is probably a little bit of a gamble. I feel like the safer money is on the under, but I am going to take the over regardless. So I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth for a minute. But San Francisco, the way they played week 1, I don't think that the Rams are going to be able to keep pace. And for some reason, Brock Purdy just continues his story, right? Like the kid is playing sound football. He's finding his receivers, whether it's McCaffrey or Ayuk or Debo. Kittle will get involved as well, obviously, but Purdy's doing a great job keeping the car in the lane and giving what the defense gives him.
Right. I'm also going to take the 49ers. Brock Purdy is 7-2 against the spread as a starter there. I think that continues, and at the end of this week, he'll be 8-2 against the spread as a starter for the 49ers. I do think that the over is in play here. Not going to surprise me if we see San Francisco put up 30-some by themselves, and I think that you're going to see the Rams find a way to get into at least double digits. So even if this one is a blowout and you see this one 35-10, we still hit the over on this one here. So I think that could very well be what we're in store for. But I do think Matthew Stafford gets it done through the air. I think that he's going to find himself into going over 225.5 passing yards.
This is a bit of a gamble, but I'm going to take Cam Akers over 31.5 rushing yards. The opportunities will be there, and he'll see, probably 15 carries. We need him to be 3 yards a carry when we get there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like it. All right, heading over to the next matchup here. We got the Giants facing off against the Arizona Cardinals. Giants are favored by 4. The over-under is 39.5. Thoughts on this one?
Giants and under. I was very underwhelmed with what the Giants were able to do besides turn the ball over Sunday night against the Cowboys. I think they're able to right the ship slightly, and they can win this game. It wouldn't surprise me if it was something, 24-13. Something like that, and be just under. So I'm taking the Giants, and I'm taking the under.
I like it. I'm also going to take the Giants, and I'm going to take the under. The Giants are 6-0 against the spread after a loss when the head coach is Brian Daboll there. So I think that we see them continue this. Arizona is just a bad team that I think actually outperformed their week 1 performance there. But I think points come at a premium on this one. Prop that I really like on this one is Daniel Jones under 1.5 passing touchdowns.
It's funny. I chose a Daniel Jones prop as well. I think he's over 211 and a half passing yards.
So that'll be an interesting one if both of those hit. Like there's certainly a world that it comes true and it potentially goes there. But
215 and a touchdown. He runs one in. Saquon gets one. I think there's a really clear path to both of it happening. Honestly,
right. We have Rolling Loud on YouTube there saying the Cam Akers over, asking if watch football there, and saying the job's been took. Job's been took by who? Are you really thinking that Kyron Williams is the answer out there in Los Angeles? That's kind of my question there.
So no, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but Cam Akers is going to continue to see the opportunities. They're not going to hand it over to Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams is a statue. He has no wiggle. He has no explosiveness. He's just a battering ram that falls forward. Like Cam Akers has the explosiveness to at least hit the hole and get the yardage after contact.
Correct. Yeah, I don't see that one changing there.
It's 31 yards. I'm not calling for him to go over 80. Like I'm saying he's going to get 32 rushing yards.
Right. So that one should be pretty good. Anyway, let's go ahead and head up to the next one here. We've got the Jets and the Cowboys. Dallas favored by 9, the over under 38.5. Thoughts on this one?
I bounce back and forth on this a little bit. I'm going to take the Jets to cover the 9. Now, I understand the recent history of the complete curb stomping the Cowboys just laid on the Giants. I do think that one thing that helps is the Jets defense is significantly better than anything Dallas saw in week 1 against New York. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair. I'm taking the under in this game, and it's not necessarily because of just how the Jets play offense. I think it's how the Cowboys – I don't know that they're going to be able to move the ball very well. I don't like Tony Pollard at all this week. I think the Jets are going to be able to kind of eliminate him as far as the rushing attack. I think that Sauce Gardner is going to be able to limit what CeeDee Lamb is doing, and it would not surprise me if Jake Ferguson, for the second week in a row, is the highest targeted Cowboy in a game.
Yeah, this is one that I kind of struggled with as I went back and forth on this thing. And, when we're talking 9 points, that is a incredibly large number to cover on the when it comes to a spread anymore. And while I originally was going to go with the Cowboys on this one, more and more I think about this thing. I'm not a fan of a team, calling a team to cover the 9 points on this thing. So I'm going to be right there with you with the Jets. The under on this one, right? Like I don't think the Jets are going to find a way to put up enough points on this thing. I think we're going to get a low, grinded out defensive type of battle here where we get some back and forth and not a whole lot of end zone finding here. But I do think that we're going to see enough where Garrett Wilson finds his way to getting over 4.5 receptions when this is all said and done.
No, which I think he has to for the Jets to keep this close, right? You have to be able to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. I think where the Jets are going to be a little forgiving is underneath slightly. So I think Jake Ferguson, you're going to see him over 2.5 receptions, right? He led the team with 7 targets in week 1. It would not surprise me, much like my point 2 minutes ago, that he leads the team again in targets just because of how the secondary of the Jets plays out. I think 2.5, 3 catches. I think 3 catches is completely doable for Jake Ferguson, as Dak is going to see a lot of pressure on him. He's going to have to get the ball out quick, and he is not afraid to use his tight end to, get the ball out of his hands and push forward.
Agreed. All right, let's go ahead and get in here to the Washington Commanders coming to the Denver Broncos here. Denver favored by 3.5, the over under 39. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Washington the under. Like, I'm not convinced that the Broncos can win a game by more than 3 points if they do win this game. And like I said earlier, the Commanders are not going to score more than 20 points. They're not dynamic enough on offense for that to happen, but I'm not sure the Broncos are dynamic enough to get to 21. So I'm going to take the under.
Fair enough. I do like the under on this one. I think we've got a defensive battle ahead of us. Yeah, and it was one of those that, as much as I want to root for the hometown team and root for these guys to get it done, I think you're right. I think the Broncos are going to have a hard time hitting 3.5 or 4 points, a 4-point victory, if they can even win a game at all here. But that being said, right, Denver is 7-1 as the favorite against the spread since the start of last season. I think they're 1-8 at the end of this one. So I am going to go Washington. I'm going to go the under. One of the props that I do like Sam Howell to find his way into going over 200.5 passing yards. I think we see him, not by much, but I think we can see him get to 210, 215 in the passing category.
Fair enough. I'm going to take Javonte Williams over 11.5 receiving yards. The Cowboys offense was extremely horizontal week 1 against Las Vegas. I think we're going to see more of the same. We're going to see these screen passes, Russ get the ball out quick, do whatever. He wasn't afraid to use the running backs and the tight ends. So I think Javonte is going to be able to get himself 12 yards receiving.
I like it. Eamon on YouTube asking, starting QB week 2, Stafford or Jackson? I think you still got to go Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, you have to go Lamar Jackson because of what he can do with his legs, right? I don't love his passing prop, but if he throws for 180 and 1 touchdown and is able to come up with another 56 yards on the ground, maybe he scampers another one in. I still think he's there, and his upside's higher than Stafford's going up against San Francisco.
Right. Yeah, because Stafford's prop was 225 through the air, right? And he might get 1 or 2 touchdowns. So if you're talking that, not a ton of points there. Whereas Lamar, you actually went through pretty close to, right? Like his rushing prop was, I think, 56.5 yards as well when we were going through that. He's also the likelihood that he can find the end zone through the ground and through the air greater than Stafford there as well. So you're right. You're absolutely right. Like the ceiling is far higher on Jackson, and you got to go that route. So David Montgomery versus Seattle or Joshua Kelly versus the Titans? Monty,
hands down.
Especially in standard scoring. Start 1, Mike Williams, Puka Nacua, or Miles Sanders?
Mike Williams.
Yeah, as much as I want to go with Puka Nacua, he's dealing with that oblique injury, which, that could limit him. Even if he starts, even if he's out there, even if Stafford targets him double-digit times, that could realistically limit the upside play there for Puka. So
the Niners are not going to let happen what the Seahawks did in week 1.
Right. Yes. Jalen Hurts and Hawkinson's did amazing things on Thursday. Happy about that. And the Eagles D, 7 points, not bad. Absolutely. They got some stuff done for your fantasy rosters. Absolutely. Running back, I don't know if to start Javonte or Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders will have more opportunity than Javonte Williams will.
Yeah. I'm okay with Miles Sanders here. I think it's close, but taking my Homer hat off, I do think Miles Sanders has a slight edge.
Right. Start 2, PPR flex, Drake London, Nico Collins, Elijah Moore, Javonte Williams. Nico Collins is the for sure start for me out of this group.
I would agree. I think I'm going to go Nico and Javonte.
That's kind of where I was leaning as well. I could be potentially talked into Drake London, but I'm
not starting Drake London again until I see the Atlanta offense actually
move the ball through the air.
He was on the field for 97% of the snaps and didn't see a freaking target in week 1. Like,
right.
there's a problem in Atlanta with that. So, no, I keep London on my roster because if they do turn this around, there's not options to get the ball into playmakers' hands other than their 2 running backs. So Pitts is going to get his 4 targets a game. London can't do worse than what he did last week. So you keep him. But no, I agree. Nico, and I'm going Javonte just because
he's got big play potential.
Yeah, he does. He runs aggressively. He did look bad. They're just working him back. So
right.
There we go. I think we're in unison there.
Yeah, it's Nico and Javonte for us both. There you go, Chris. There's the answer. All righty, let's go ahead and head over to the Sunday night game. We have the Miami Dolphins taking on the New England Patriots. Miami favored by 3. The over-under on this one, 46.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm going to take Miami to cover it because they are the better football team, but I am taking the under. Tua historically does not have good numbers against a Bill Belichick run defense. They do have the ability to stymie kind of what Miami wants to do for some reason. Now, can Tyreek still get loose? Absolutely. But Bill has had really good luck against keeping Tyreek in check. So I like Jalen Waddle slightly more this week than Tyreek. But nevertheless, I'm going to take the under. I don't think we quite get to that point total. I could see 44, maybe 45, but I don't think we get to 47 to hit the over.
Fair enough. I am going to take Miami. The Pats are 0-6 in the last bit here as an underdog against the spread. So I'm going to take Miami on this one. I'm going to take the over, though. I think we do see some points on this thing. New England looks a little bit different than we've seen the last couple of years, right? Like this is the Bill O'Brien offense looked very different than anything we saw from the Patriots offense last year when you had kind of the conglomeration of, Matt Patricia and crew trying to play call the offensive side of the ball. So
terrible.
So I think that we can get this one to the point where not going to surprise me. We look up and we see a 27-24 game when it's all said and done with Miami winning. So I do like the over on that one. One of the props I really like, Tua going over 1.5 passing touchdowns.
I really like Ramondre Stevenson going over 50.5. Like this is the same Dolphins defense that absolutely just got gashed on the ground for over 200 yards between Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly. I think Stevenson can get to over 51 yards pretty easily in this game.
Right. I like it. Question coming in from Farmer Fam 17 on YouTube. Buy, sell Gabe Davis this week. Really depends on, what you're buying or selling for. But I know you called the prop on him going over his passing prop of 43.5 receiving yards on this one. So
yeah, I like Gabe Davis this week. I think he's a solid flex option. He's going to be targeted, right? He's healthy. He looked a little bit more explosive against the Jets. That secondary is just really stinking good, guys. Like, it really is a good secondary that New York has. So I like the option for Davis. The Raiders secondary is not as good. And unlike the Broncos in week 1, Buffalo does have multiple receiving options. Last week, it was Cortland Sutton and a cast of characters, and then Greg Dulcich went out. So it was, that's part of the reason the Broncos went so horizontal and quit going vertical at all. The Bills are not going to do that. They're the exact opposite. They do not go horizontal for much of anything. They go vertical all the stinking time. That plays right into what Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs are very good at. So I like Davis this week.
I like it. Let's go ahead and hit into the one of 2 Monday Night Football games, but we've got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Carolina Panthers. New Orleans favored by 3.5. I have seen this line shrink to 3. Over under is 39.5. Thoughts on this one?
I like the Saints here. I think that there's a bit of a scare against Tennessee, right? But Derek Carr threw for over 300 yards passing. It's just putting an into the end zone, right? So Carolina's defense is okay, I think is what we're going to call it, but clearly they can get gashed on the ground. So I think that's a good thing for Jamal Williams here this week. But New Orleans, really is the cream of the NFC South here. So this is a game. Yes, it's on the road, but they should win this game.
Yeah, I think that they covered the points on that for sure. This is one of those that I kept going back and forth all day between over, under on this one, but I think I'm going to settle on the over when this thing's all said and done. I think Carolina does just enough to put up enough points that we carry this thing over. 39.5 is an incredibly low point total. And to your point, New Orleans looked pretty good moving the ball. They just couldn't seem to punch it in once they got inside the 20 into the end zone there. And I think that changes this week. I think we see, the Saints find the end zone a little bit more often this time. One of the props that I liked was Raheed Shaheed over 36.5 receiving yards in this one.
So no, I like that. I think, I don't know if I mentioned it. I like the over as well. In this game, my prop for the game, Chris Olave over 72.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I like that one too.
JC, real quick, part of the reason for that, JC Horn out, not playing.
Yes.
Carolina, his name is escaping me at the moment. Carolina's second cornerback is also banged up. So they are a little depleted in the secondary coming into this game. And we saw the instant kind of rapport that Derek Carr and Chris Olave had. I think that's why he will get over that 72.5.
Right. Not going to surprise me if we look up and see Derek Carr over 300 passing yards again in this game when it's all said.
I looked at his prop. Yeah. What is it? It's at 244.5, I think is what Derek Carr's prop is at the moment. It was pretty enticing, but at the end of the day, I figured, 73 is easier to get to than 245.
True. Very true. All right, the second Monday Night Football game here. We got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cleveland favored by 2.5. The over-under on this one, 38.5. Thoughts on this one?
Pittsburgh at home. Now, week 1 was ugly, right? I think we both took Pittsburgh in week 1, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
We got burned here a little bit. I think that these teams are very familiar with each other. Right. I think they each understand what the other one's trying to do. In situations like this, these rivalry games, these divisional games, I tend to lean the hometown or the home team a little bit, especially when they're getting points. So I am going to take Pittsburgh to cover the 2.5. Honestly, on a money line, I don't know if I could make a quick decision just yet. But, I mean, I could see something, 24-23 because I have the under. Yeah, so 24-23 is the over. So that's probably not what's going to happen initially, but I do think Pittsburgh finds a way to cover that 2.5 1-point game.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a slow, grinded out, definitely in the trenches type of game here. I'm going to take the under on this one. I am going to take Cleveland. I think that they're going to be able to get it done. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they've got a guy named Nick Chubb on the roster whose prop is 75.5 rushing yards. I see him going over that, and I think that he'll get do a very good job for your fantasy rosters this week. I just don't see this one. Yeah, this one here, when I was really looking through it, I honestly think we're going to get another weird, goofy kind of score where this is going to be like an 18-15 type of game.
Lots of field goals. I'm taking George Pickens prop over 41.5 receiving yards. Again, this is his time to step up and shine. I don't see how Deontay Johnson plays, right? They were saying week to week, and he goes, "Oh, I'm better. Doesn't hurt when I stand up now." It's like, well, that doesn't mean you're game ready, brother. Like, I appreciate it. Like, I understand your competitiveness, but that doesn't mean you're ready to play. So, speedy recovery to him, absolutely. But while you're out, this is Pickens' time, right? We called this as far as him kind of cementing himself as the number one receiver. I wasn't planning on injury being that reason, but nevertheless, this is his window of opportunity, right? Like, he has to ball out in this game to kind of keep that edge ahead. Otherwise, I think Johnson's going to continue to see more targets week in and week out.
Yeah, very well could be. Well, guys, that's going to take us to the end of our slate here for games that we're covering over the weekend. If you have any final questions, thoughts, starts, sits, any of that kind of stuff, make sure you throw them out here in the chat, and we'll get those knocked out here real quick. But, Kevin, that does start taking us down here to the end of it. What final thoughts do you have out there for the viewers and listeners?
enjoy the slate, right? This is kind of a weird slate. There aren't too many divisional matchups going on this week. It felt like, right? You have Browns, Steelers, you have Colts, Texans, and then you have a lot of people kind of crossing over here a little bit. So it should be fun. A lot of teams who don't typically play each other a whole heck of a lot. Niners, Rams as well. Sorry. So there's another one. And then you get 2 Monday night games. That's awesome. More football Monday night. Yay. So enjoy the weekend. If you have any questions, feel free, hit us up at Good Old Boys FF, wherever you consume your social media status. We are there and more than happy to help the best we can.
Absolutely. Something that was kind of crazy here as I was going through that, there's 15 games that are being played through Monday night now. 7 of those 15 games have lines that are 40 points or under. Like, it made it hard for us to root for points this week, whoever made that schedule. Thank you very much. So just an interesting thought there. Terrence saying, should I start the 49ers kickers, pick him up off of waivers, dropped Raiders kicker?
For this week, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree with that. So, alrighty, guys. Well, that's going to take it down to the end for us. Terrence got one more question coming in here. You can pick up the Dallas or the Jags kicker. Honestly, I'd probably pick up the Jags. Well, no, Jags have got some weather coming in. The Jaguars have some weather coming in. I saw that.
Yeah, I think I'll leave with that Niners. I think I stay with that Niners-Rams game. I think there's going to be some opportunity there.
Right. And you know what, Kevin? I think now that I said that and I remember about the weather, I'm going to actually change my call on that Jags-Chiefs game where I was talking that point total up. I think I'm going to jump on board with you and call that under there. So
I suppose there will be room for you on the wagon.
All right. I'm glad that the wagon is still open there. So there we go. I'll make that call change there. All right, guys. That's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.